Hi, this is going to be another video in our Chipotle valuation example series. And in this one, we're going to go back and look at the 10K. We're probably going to have a few videos on walking through the 10K. Takes a while to go through these. You'll get more comfortable as you do a few, but let's just recap. Right now, we're at the Chipotle Investor Relations main page. And the 10K is an SEC filing. It's essentially the annual report. So we click on the SEC filings, and it's an annual filing. So there's the 10K annual report, which provides a comprehensive overview of the company for the past year. Now, one thing to note is I'm recording this in mid-July 2020. This was released in February, early February 2020. So that's not going to be very up to date. It covers the end of 2019. We've gone half a year past that. So we'll want to think about that. And in later videos, I'll talk about how to update your information as you move through the year. So to download it, you can see there's several different forms. I've got the PDF. I just clicked on that. I've already got it downloaded. And let's go here. So this is the top of the 10K form. It's something that's filed with the SEC on an annual basis by all publicly traded companies. And what it does is provide an overview of the company, what they're doing, what their risk factors are, what their financial performance is, and things along those lines. Now, one thing, as you'll see when we go through this, and I mentioned this, I think, in my quick overview of the 10K, is that it is written from the perspective of the company. So expect to see a little bit of a positive spin on things as you go through here. Now, it's all factual information, but how you present the factual information can make a difference. Now, one of the things that you'll notice as we start going through, every 10K has a table of contents. And what we're going to look at is just the business overview. So again, this is going to be a multi-part video series of the 10K. This part looks at the business overview. One thing you'll see up front on all of these is forward-looking statements. Anything where we're talking about what we think is going to happen, take with a grain of salt. And that makes sense. Companies, the CEO, the executives, they probably know more about the company than you and I ever will, but they still don't know what's going to happen over the next year or two. So when they provide guidance, it's their best guess, but it doesn't mean that's what is going to happen. And if you look at this 10K, you're not going to see any mention of COVID over the next year because it wasn't really on their radar screen as an issue they had to worry about. So keep in mind, anytime you're looking, one of the things that is going to show up is you got to project the future, and that's very, very difficult to do. So let's start. Like I said, this video is going to walk through the business. Chipotle Mexican Grill, a Delaware corporation. Now, an interesting side note here, if you're not that familiar with corporations, about 50% of publicly traded companies are incorporated in Delaware. The reason for that is it is one of the best places, and I should put best in air quotes, but best from the corporation's perspective as far as the legal structure. So you'll see quite a few companies, regardless of where their headquarters are, that they'll be incorporated in Delaware. So they operate Chipotle Mexican Grill restaurants. Again, I don't know if anybody's ever been to one. It's one of my favorite places to eat. One of the reasons I picked this is that it is a company I'm familiar with as a customer. It's also a company that's relatively straightforward and easy to understand. And I think that's a good place to start if you start looking at 10Ks. And so they feature a relevant menu of burritos, burrito bowls, tacos, and salad. They're cultivating a better world by serving responsibly sourced, classically cooked real food with wholesome ingredients without artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives. Two quick comments on that line. One I mentioned earlier, what you're going to see through a 10K, basically anything the company puts out, is it's going to be presented from the company's perspective. Probably a little more positive, a little more spin than you would expect in analyst report. And so here we're going to see a little bit of that spin. The company's trying to present kind of their marketing campaign within the 10K. But another thing is it also gives you a feel for how the company is trying to identify itself. That can be important to know from an investor's perspective. Whether or not you think that these are important things are less relevant than whether or not customers might think these are important things. So do you think this marketing, this niche that Chipotle is trying to create with this marketing campaign is going to be effective? So that's something to think about. As of December 31st, 2019, we operated 2,580 Chipotle restaurants throughout the United States, 39 international Chipotle restaurants, and 3 non-Chipotle restaurants. Now that gives you a quick feel for where is this company based. You can see that of probably 2,630 some restaurants, they have almost 2,600 of them in the US. So they're very much a US-based company. What does that mean for potential expansion? One, it means that there is opportunity for expansion if their framework works outside the US, and that's an open question. They only have 39 international Chipotle restaurants right now, so there's not a track record to make me as an investor say, hey, this is a concept that's going to work on a global basis. I know it works on a US basis. It has worked for quite a while on a US basis. And so I know that part works from a business perspective. But seeing 39 international Chipotle restaurants tells me maybe there's an opportunity for international growth, but it's not been proven yet. Now, one of the things that I want to stress through these videos is you're getting a lot of things from my perspective. Doesn't mean it's the right perspective. I'm trying to give you an example of how I might walk through a company and do the analysis. Different people are going to have different outlooks on this. Business strategy. Now you can see I've highlighted certain things on here. So they've got 5 key fundamental strategies. 2 that I think are important are leveraging our digital make line to expand access and convenience. That has been important through the COVID pandemic. It's something that also might be beneficial after the COVID pandemic. A lot of times people want a convenient meal to pick up, and Chipotle can serve that purpose. So if they can do that effectively, that's going to be worth noting. Engaging with customers through our loyalty program. A lot of restaurants have some type of loyalty program that they've put together. It's important to think about how well that's structured. How much are they spending on rewards? How well are they targeting customers through those loyalty programs? Are they causing customers to return? Is it something that incrementally helps business, or is it just a cost of doing business? And I don't really have the answers to that. Some of these things are just questions to think about that you're going to have to develop on your own. Food with integrity. I highlighted that again. It's part of their marketing campaign. It's a big part of Chipotle, is the idea that when you're going to Chipotle, you're getting fresh food, you're getting real food. And that is one way they try to differentiate themselves from some other fast food restaurants. So the argument would be that you're probably getting better quality ingredients than if you went to some other quick service or fast food type chains. Purchasing and food safety. This is a big issue for Chipotle because in the mid 2000s, I think it was like 2015, 2016, somewhere in there, Chipotle ran into some huge food safety issues, a couple of food poisonings linked to Chipotle. Their stock price dropped dramatically, their revenues dropped, and this was a major issue that it took them about 2 to 3 years to fully address and to kind of regain consumer confidence that it's safe to eat at Chipotle. Now, there's a legitimate argument about how unsafe it was. There are, remember, 2,600 Chipotles. So if you have 2 or 3 outbreaks across the country, that's going to get national news. But how relevant is it to the average consumer? It may not be something that has that big of an impact. However, that's something you're going to have to think about with any type of chain business. Anything that happens at one location is going to impact the overall brand of the company itself. So we have to think about how does this company manage its brand image? And food safety has become a big issue for Chipotle to think about. If we look through here, 23 independently owned and operated regional distribution centers. So that gives you an idea of how diverse their footprint is. The more distribution centers, the more effectively they can distribute their proteins, their rice, all their ingredients, things like that. So it's important to know that their distribution network is wide enough. As they expand more Chipotles, are they going to have to build more distribution networks? How many? Something to think about. We work closely with our suppliers and seek to develop mutually beneficial long-term relationships with them. Okay, that's kind of a buzzword type thing. Most companies are trying to seek mutually beneficial long-term relationships with their suppliers. We use a mix of forward fixed formula and range forward pricing protocols. So this has to do with their purchases. One of the things that we're going to see is their costs, and some of their costs are already set up for the next year because they've entered into pricing agreements and things like that with some of their suppliers. We've also sought to increase where practical the number of suppliers for our ingredients to help mitigate pricing volatility and supply shortages. If you're going for a specific quality of ingredients, you need to make sure that that ingredient chain or that supply chain for those ingredients is viable. So you have to make sure that you're not going to have a shortage. What happens if there's a beef shortage? What happens if there's a pork shortage or something along those lines? Beans, anything that Chipotle uses, they've got to make sure that those ingredients are there. We closely monitor industry news, trade tariffs, weather, exchange rates, foreign demand, crisis, and other world events that may affect our ingredient prices. Certain key ingredients, including beef, pork, chicken, beans, so on, are purchased from a small number of suppliers. So you might think, well, why do I care as an investor from that? It's a risk issue. It's something you have to be aware of as a potential risk factor. These and other food safety practices underscore our commitment to be a leader in food safety while continuing to serve high quality food that our guests love. Okay, again, you see some of the spin going on here. High quality food, guests love it. Of course, you're not going to say, we serve mediocre food, but we're priced cheap enough, people keep coming back. That's not the kind of thing that you want to put in your 10K. But when you read something like that, take it with a grain of salt. What's more important is those food issues, the safety issues they had a couple years ago, those are something that they've made a point to address. And so that's raising their costs a little bit. Keep in mind, though, this is a company that has very high revenues. They've got 2,600 stores operational. That's going to be increasing. So if they have to spend a little bit on this, probably not that much on per burrito or per taco cost for them. So if they can end up improving their brand image, it may very well be a very wise investment for them to really focus on that food safety. Guest experience and operation. Safe, quick, clean, and happy environment is always our highest priority. I think one thing that I've been to quite a few different Chipotles, they do a pretty good job of this. I've been into quite a few fast food, quick service type restaurants. I won't say Chipotle is at the Chick-fil-A level of customer service or cleanliness or things like that, but they tend to be better on average than a lot of fast food places. Now, again, you're going to see variance from place to place, variance depending on the time you're there. But the customer experience is a big part of how well customers enjoy going there and how likely they are to go back. If you end up with a bad experience, you might not be a regular repeat customer, and repeat customers are important for their cash flow stream. Another important part of understanding the business is how do they structure that. Now, I mentioned Chick-fil-A just a minute ago. I have not been in a Chick-fil-A where the service has not been exceptional, where the employees are not exceptional. Whatever Chick-fil-A does as far as making sure their restaurants are run smoothly, they do a great job of this. And that's not a Chick-fil-A plug or anything on that. Chick-fil-A's got other issues that they deal with on a public relations standpoint. Some people love Chick-fil-A, some people don't. The main thing, though, is the quality of service at a Chick-fil-A tends to be quite a bit higher than the average fast food or quick service restaurant. And so one of the keys to that is, how is your labor force situated? So what is your management process? How do you hire? And so this addresses some of that. Innovation. How are they going to expand their menu? What new things are they going to offer? I've been going to Chipotle for about 25 years, and I've been a satisfied customer during that time, pretty much ordering the same basic things over and over again. But sometimes they introduce new products. Big thing that they introduced probably a year or two ago is a queso cheese sauce, and their first iteration of that was not very successful. Now, I'm sure some people loved it. A lot of people did not like it. They came out with a new version of that as well. So the innovation is something that's important. How can they come up with new ideas, both from a food aspect as well as digital mobile ordering platforms, digital order pickup lanes we call Chipotlanes. So how do they modify their restaurants to make it more drive-through friendly? All those things. Delivery and catering. Catering's another way that you can expand your market and get more customers in there. So understanding that business. Marketing. We've talked about marketing. 2019, we made our brand more visible, culturally relevant marketing campaigns and initiatives. What did they do? One of the big things I highlighted in here is Chipotle Rewards. They introduced a rewards program. Now, as you go to Chipotle more frequently, you can get free guacamole, free chips, free entree, depending on how often you go there. And so that might be something that gets customers to go more frequently. That may be a very worthwhile investment from Chipotle's perspective. Also, we mentioned new products. I talked about the queso sauce earlier. They've rolled out several successful menu items, including our digital-only lifestyle bowls. Never had one. Carne asada, a premium seasoned steak. I had that once. It was all right. It wasn't my favorite. Basically a chicken burrito guy, but different people like different things, and having a few different products on there can make a difference. If you've got 3 or 4 people going, you want to make sure that there's something that everybody is going to want to eat. Competition. This is really something to think about. And one of my subscribers made a comment, how do you evaluate the industry? And I said, I might put together a few videos on that because I think that's important to think about. But fast casual, quick service, and casual dining segments of the restaurant industry are highly competitive with respect to, among other things, taste, price, food quality, presentation, service, location. You can see a whole list of things here. Our competition includes a variety of restaurants in each of these segments, including locally owned restaurants as well as national and regional chains. In recent years, competition has increased significantly from restaurant formats like ours that serve higher quality food quickly and at a reasonable price. That's essential to understand. How much competition is there in the industry? All else equal, the more competition, the harder it is for companies to make higher profits. If you have one competitor or no competitors, it becomes easy to make profits. The more more competitors, the harder it is to stand out and to attract that. So you've got to think, how big is the potential market? Who are we competing against? What's happening to those competitors? That's going to impact your growth. That's going to impact your profit margins. All those things that we're forecasting as part of our model. Restaurant site selection. Where are they opening new restaurants? Okay, some big markets, Chicago, New York City, all of those have quite a few Chipotles. Is there room for more? Probably, but you've probably, once you've got 2,600 restaurants, you've probably hit a lot of the prime locations already. So what's going to create new opportunities? One is going to be growth. Cities don't stay constant, so new suburbs develop. Can we open a Chipotle there? Is the income area or the demographics good for a Chipotle in that area? How many competitors are there? All those things are going to go into restaurant site selection, and that's going to make a big impact on how successful the company is. Remember, for a company like Chipotle, they can grow from increasing same store sales, and they can grow from opening new stores. So opening new stores is a key component of their growth. They've got to spend a lot of time and effort making sure they're getting the best opportunities. Other restaurant concepts. Now, I've followed Chipotle for a while. Unfortunately, I haven't been invested in it, which if you look at their stock price over the last couple of years, it's probably a mistake on my part. But one of the things that I remember Chipotle having before is a couple of other restaurant chains. They had a Shophouse Asian chain, and they have a pizzeria locale. Now, their argument here is that we believe that the fundamental principle on which our restaurants are based, sourcing better ingredients, preparing them using classic techniques in front of guests, serving them in an interactive format, can be adapted to cuisines other than food served at Chipotle. Okay, they've had Pizzeria Locale for quite a while. There are 3 restaurants of Pizzeria Locale. They're all in Denver, Colorado. This is not a chain that's growing rapidly. It makes you wonder, why do they have it? Is it an opportunity that they're going to explore at some point? Or is it going to be just kind of a sideshow? Information systems and cybersecurity. When you think of Chipotle, you probably don't think of technology much, but they've got their mobile app. They've got ways to place orders online. They've got to worry about technological security measures, cyber attacks, just like any other large company. So you have to remember, there's going to be IT staff working at Chipotle. Have to think of those costs or those parts of the business. Now, they're probably not going to be a big part of your analysis, but they are part of the business. One last thing that I want to mention, how many employees does Chipotle have? Well, remember, they have about 2,600 restaurants. Each of those restaurants has quite a few employees. So as of December 31st, 2019, they had 83,000 employees, 6,000 salaried employees. So this would be management and executives, and about 77,000 hourly employees. None of their employees are unionized or covered by a collective bargaining agreement. That can be important for thinking of cost issues. So is this a specialized labor force? Is it a labor force that is less specialized? Those are things to think about. The more specialized your labor force, the more potential bargaining power those workers are going to have. If they have a union or things like that, that can increase the costs. And so from a cost perspective, those are things an investor might want to look at. So I'm going to wrap this video up, and we'll have some more videos coming up later.